On there, folks. Good morning. It is the Earthmaster here on this. It is New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2022, the last day here in the year of 2022. So looking forward to a new year, right? New year, new me? Nah. New year, same me. It is about 9 a.m. West Coast here in California. Did see some activity ramping up here this morning into the Southern California area. Checking out the USGS map here. Seen a 4.2 coming in north of the Borrego Springs area, about 2.5 kilometers deep. It was felt broadly over the southern portion of the state here, from around the epicenter to the San Diego area, maybe even in the portions of Long Beach. Not a big earthquake whatsoever, but it did kick up on the San Jacinto, whichever one you prefer, fault system. There's a couple different segments here, and it's a pretty lengthy fault system parallel with the San Andreas Fault. I believe it's the second lengthiest one here on the plate boundary, just prior to the plate boundary, I should say. And they're seeing a little bit of swarming following that 4.2. Now, uncertain on if this is just aftershock activity or possibly forequakes. 4.2, the largest so far. We did see quite a few microquakes, and we're looking at a total tally so far of 43 earthquakes, with quite a bit coming in as we speak. I do have the Barrett station up here in Southern Cal. That's only going to be picking up the larger earthquakes, not these small microquakes. But kicking off on the Clark Fault, well, it's a segment of the San Jacinto Fault Zone, the Anza section Clark Fault. A little bit of historical data on here. Looks like the Clark Fault area, let's see here. There's been a couple different ruptures here on certain segments. Back in 1968, there was an M6.5. Now, the Hot Springs Buck Ridge faults, those are a different segment. Now, the Clark Fault right here, one of the larger and more active fault segments, the Casa Loma Fault. Man, they got so many different names here. But they believe that the 1954 earthquake that occurred down there was on this specific segment of the San Jacinto Fault, the Clark Fault. And that was a pretty good sized earthquake. It is possible to see a little bit larger. The slip rate is not super high on this segment, or on any segment. The Coyote Creek Fault looks like it's between 2 and 6 mm per year. So different segments have different slip rate in this area, but as you can see listed up here on the map, there's numerous different segments of the San Jacinto Fault Zone, and that's just happened to be where we're seeing some activity today. Now, a look at the last 7 days of all magnitudes here. California has been generally fairly quiet in terms of seismic activity. We did see a little bit of swarming. I think we noted that a couple nights ago near the Elsinore Fault. Also a little bit further up north on the San Jacinto Fault Zone, the Anza section up north had a little separate swarming. So things are just a little on the active side now. So we'll continue to watch this area. Also, last night we've seen a little bit of activity on the San Andreas Fault. Of course, that's a major plate boundary. The southern segment seen a little bit of separate swarming itself. Now, it looks like we did see a couple more earthquakes after midnight last night, including a 1.4 and a 0.8. These other earthquakes here, the previous ones from yesterday. But overall, I think definitely keep an eye Southern California with this new activity kind of ramping up here today. Also, a little separate swarm kicking off near the Lucerne Valley. That's just north of Big Bear City, Big Bear Lake area. Kind of right there on the northern edge of the San Bernardino Mountains. Looks like 14 earthquakes so far. And most of these occurring about 3:41 in the morning. And looking at the timestamp of these earthquakes here, let me go over here and check the timestamp on this 4-pointer. Yeah, 4.2. That 4.2 was about 4 o'clock in the morning. So following all of this activity, it applied further strain upstream, which kind of makes sense because you got certain sections of the plate. Of course, the North American plate kind of heading down generally to the southeast here. Let me draw, and that's definitely not right. Second time I've done that. So you got this plate boundary headed down towards the southeast. The Pacific plate heading off to the northwest. Of course, the line here is going to be the San Andreas Fault. And when we've seen that 4.2 kickoff with the swarming, adjusting this plate boundary over here applied further strain up along the North American plate here. That's a mess of arrows, but trying to give a brief description of how the plates work and the pressure transfer can affect other plates or other fault systems, I should say, in this very dynamic setup. Of course, the plate boundary, the San Andreas Fault, that's been building up strain for 322 years or more. That's the southern branch. And it's locked. It's pretty locked and loaded. I don't know how much more strain it can get, so it passes off some activity further into the fault systems on the North American side, where we've seen that today. Timestamps definitely are important in looking at these quakes. Again, 4.2 coming in at 4:12. And a lot of these coming in right around that time frame. Some of them still continuing this morning up until about 7 o'clock. So activity in SoCal definitely ramping up. We'll keep an eye on that region today. Still seeing some aftershock movement. Now, we haven't really seen too much activity up north of there, north of the Garlock Fault shear zone. That's going to be that little segment here. It's a shear fault system. Kind of runs, well, nothing like the majority of the faults out here in SoCal. Kind of runs opposite the oddball, but it does build up some strain here in this area. It's been a while since the Garlock Fault had a full rupture. Last earthquake this morning on 1.3. That one coming in just outside the Ridgecrest area. Up around the Bay Area, getting a little bit of movement here outside of the Vacaville region. Looks like 3.2 and a couple other smaller quakes coming in about 1 o'clock in the morning. General seismic activity appears to have picked up since last night's update here along the west coast. So movement on the coastal range fault over here as well near Laytonville. That one coming in within the last hour. One earthquake up here just after midnight within our area that's seen that 6.4 here last week. Still seeing a little bit of aftershock activity, 17 kilometers deep. Rest of the Pacific Northwest pretty quiet, and the rest of the country fairly quiet as well. One earthquake here around the New Madrid zone. Aside from that, really nothing to talk about here on the rest of the country. Puerto Rico area, seeing some activity again north of Puerto Rico here. They've seen a 4.2 coming in yesterday. Since then, the majority of activity looks like it's around the swarming area down here around the southwestern portion of Puerto Rico, where they're always having that swarm. Kicking up quite a bit. Guatemala, one earthquake off the coast here this morning time period, about 7:30, 4.7 coming in. So when we look at this activity along a regional fault system and some adjacent faults here on the eastern side of the plate boundary, of the Pacific plate, I should say, it definitely leads to that teeter-totter effect that I chat about here a lot. And that's kind of looks like where it's happening today. West Coast and areas on adjacent plates here on the eastern side of the Pacific plate. Now down here in South America, most of this activity here from yesterday, we did see a 4.5 Chile area, but those are the 4-pointers, and above there's still some smaller quakes coming into the region that we can't throw out because they are just giving us a reassurance that the activity is still there. Quite a few 2s and 3s down there in the South America region. Also, that's not the only 4-pointer there off the coast of Guatemala. We've seen some 3s and quite a few 3s as well further down south. Looks like off the coast of the El Salvador, Nicaragua area, maybe the Costa Rica region, all showing uptick in activity along the Middle America Trench, which is indicated on the globe. All right, now the Western Pacific, we do have some newer movement in the white rings here. It looks like around Tonga, and a pretty deep earthquake over here around, fairly deep earthquake around the Philippines area. Let's go ahead and check out the Western Pacific over here. And again, USGS not showing some of this activity. Let's see how big that deeper one was. It looks like it's a 3.6. Right? Am I right? No, it's not the 3.6. It could be, it's got to be the 4.6. And yeah, 4.6. And that one coming in about 7 o'clock this morning. I don't believe it's up here. Goodness. So we're missing a couple earthquakes on the map. They do have one here from yesterday, but that doesn't tell us about general movement today. But either way, some activity occurring around the Philippine plate here. As you can see on the globe, definitely some deeper movement and some shallower activity occurring as well near the Indonesia region. 4.9 Tonga area. Now it looks like the USGS is reporting some of that. About 7 o'clock this morning, seen a pretty shallow earthquake, 4.9. Now remember yesterday we did see a couple more deeper movement quakes here to the west, applying strain up along the subduction zone levels here at the surface regions. Still waiting though. Still waiting for the Solomon Islands here to light up a little bit around the Solomon Sea. That appears to be in that sweet spot of activity of where things should be kicking up. So we'll watch this zone here pretty closely throughout the day today. Older movement up into the Alaska area around the Aleutian Trench and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench, all shown activity, but that was from yesterday. As far as newer movement goes up here in the great state of Alaska, not a whole lot. Just general movement throughout the area. No major swarms. Very typical activity across Alaska currently. The Big Island of Hawaii, Kīlauea volcano is definitely kicking up today. 31 earthquakes. Now, these earthquakes are at some variable depths here. And let me see if they have been reviewed. Most of them have been reviewed, I believe. And so we're getting some shallow ones and some deeper earthquakes here happening at the Kīlauea volcano. Also up here around Mauna Kea, got a 2.19 kilometers deep underneath that volcano. Hasn't been active for a while. Let's check out the most recent volcano hazard notification on the Kīlauea volcano. See if they've mentioned anything about the swarm. I know on their previous update they mentioned that seismicity is above background levels, but it doesn't say what it means. They don't really mention what it means here. So here's the latest update put out. Yeah, I believe this is put out, shows yesterday. Now let's see what we got here. Swarm of small earthquakes beneath the Kilauea caldera began about 6 p.m. on Friday. Okay, so the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory recorded approximately 25 earthquakes, less than magnitude 2 between that time frame. The swarm seems to be diminishing at this time, but activity may pick up again. These earthquakes are typical as the summit of Kilauea repressurizes after the end of the last eruption. The earthquakes are generally dispersed beneath and around the south side of the crater, this area. Overall, the summit of Kilauea has been gradually inflating since the 28th of November. There is no indication that resumption of eruptive activity is imminent, and there are no signs of significant activity in either rift zones. But isn't that weird how just both volcanoes stopped and getting that tilt and whatnot happening at both these volcanoes? And the Kilauea volcano is the area that's been showing this odd earthquake activity or odd magma movement. And that, you know, they're kind of giving the hint at that. We get it. It repressurizes. It continues to build up for the next eruption. But it seems a little, I don't want to use the word extreme, but it seems more active than it should be. Let me go here and see what we got for the seismograph stations, and these look, well, they look pretty calm. I don't know if that one's accurate or not, but it's showing calm conditions. Is that the one I just checked out? Let's see here what we got. I like to check out numerous ones because sometimes, there we go. Sometimes these other stations here, excuse me, grab a drink of water. Sometimes these stations will be flattened or squashed in terms of picking up data. And I'm not for sure why they do that, but it kind of defeats the purpose of monitoring earthquake activity. It's possible maybe they set it up that way to only monitor the larger earthquakes, but there's definitely earthquake activity on this station at the Kīlauea volcano. Now, I'm not seeing any of those long duration events that we were looking at here a couple days back. It looked like magma movement typical in a volcano. It would be definitely not like these earthquakes. Earthquakes are just, a split couple seconds or so, and they show up as a spike on the graph. Magma movement, harmonic tremor can be long duration events that are kind of thicker in the lines and more drawn out in the timestamps here. But I'm not seeing that currently on that seismograph station, nor on this one. But this one here is definitely picking up the earthquake activity. And what'd they say? 28 earthquakes? Yeah, I would say there's way more than 28 earthquakes out here. Probably 100. I'm not going to go and count all of these either. But a pretty good swarm kicking off there at Kīlauea volcano, I would say. And, for now, their wording is that it's just repressurizing. All right, but we'll continue to watch it and monitor it. Tilt data is a little spotty on Kīlauea volcano, and I'm not for sure why. These tilt stations are really choppy. There's no consistent data coming in on any of these that I could find. And I don't know why, but that's what it is. The tilt meter up here around Mauna Loa continues to show inflation, and it's been that way since the eruption halted earlier this month. Now, it would make sense, right? Just not enough magma underneath these chambers here to produce another eruption. So we're going to see continual gradual tilt until the next eruption. But I'm watching the Kīlauea volcano. I just find it really odd that it just stopped at the same time that the Mauna Loa volcano halted. And the USGS stated that it's like a pressure thing. When one volcano stops, it could relieve pressure over here at a nearby volcano. These are separate, different chambers and lava tubes down here that each volcano harbors. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Either way, keep an eye on it. That's a pretty good swarm of earthquakes there. And they said 28. There's about 31 listed on here, but you guys seen the map. There was way more than 31 earthquakes up there. All right, and the rest of the activity down around Pahala. There was, again, one earthquake up here around Mauna Kea. Now, I'm not for certain if this is associated with the volcano, but hey, might want to watch it. Of course, the further back you go along the Hawaiian chain, the older volcanoes are really no longer active. As the hot spot will eventually form new islands out here as the Pacific Plate advances towards the northwest, creating some more beautiful islands out there in a long time. I definitely won't be around here. Never know. Million years or so, couple million years. I don't know exactly the time frame. All right, let's see. What else do we have out here? New Zealand was kicking up last night. Now, let's see what we got. I'm not seeing anything new showing up. Looks like maybe a 3.1 down here. So for that, let's go ahead and check out the GeoNet servers monitoring activity around the beautiful area of New Zealand. One of these days I'll get down there. To be honest, I've only visited one country in my life, and that's not good. I'd love to see the world, but and that country I visited was Mexico, and Mexico's definitely got some beautiful areas in certain regions, but I would love to visit the New Zealand area. I'm not even joking. Okay, earthquake activity. Last one shows it says on here yesterday. Let's see here. That was a 3.1. Now, I believe that's going to be their time. Let me go over here to the all magnitudes and see what we got. 8 minutes ago, 2.4, North Island. Couple ones. There's a 3.1. Generally, it looks like just some small earthquake activity. It shows a 4.0 here about 4 hours ago. Wow, 500 kilometers deep. Now that's a super deep earthquake into the region of the Kermadec Trench. Now this is just a preliminary earthquake report. It doesn't look like it has been reviewed. So yeah, activity doesn't appear to be too active in the New Zealand area currently. Here's some of the activity from last night. Kicking up here around this area. Although last night, I mean, there was a little bit of activity, but it doesn't look like it's continued too much today. As far as that general movement goes, just looks like some small quakes. No major swarm going on. Taupo supervolcano looks pretty calm as well. This is going to be the signature from that earthquake. I believe that was that 4-pointer that occurred yesterday, late afternoon time period. All right, let's see what we got here for Yellowstone supervolcano. Since we're on volcanoes, not a whole lot happening here. Things are very quiet. Too quiet. A little small earthquake activity. That's about it, though. Let's see what else we have here, folks. Space weather activity showing, well, the coronal hole's getting a little bit closer here. On the most recent image, this says the latest over here, but again, this is the coronal hole's back over here from a couple days ago, almost a few days ago now. So this is a little off. Just pointing that out because this says the latest, but it's not. Coronal hole 60 is probably getting very close to Earth-centered location, and we'll see. Definitely with this position here of the coronal hole, we'll see some adjustments on the 3-day geomagnetic forecast, probably after the second or so, third, as that high-speed solar wind stream should amplify conditions for the space weather and provide auroras at the appropriate latitudes. 3176 here. This one's old as well. Notice that's so this has got to be the most recent one. 3180 is a little bit more in position to see what's going on. But it looks like, kind of looks like these have degraded slightly overnight. Let's see here. Doesn't look like we've seen any more M flares overnight. Last one there was yesterday, and things have kind of tapered off a little bit. There's still a chance for some flaring. About 99% chance for a C flare, 50 for M flare, 10% for an X flare, and even a 10% proton event from the sunspots. Looks like 3176 right now, the one that's currently facing Earth, harbors a beta gamma class magnetic structure, and that's the one that could be providing the potential threat, but also don't discredit 3180. It's still pretty massive, fairly massive. It's got a 5% chance for an X flare. So we'll watch these sunspots in the coming days, hours, coming days. All right, folks, have a good one. We're going to bounce out of here. We got rain, lots of rain coming into California once again, still underneath a flood threat. Not really flooding over here where I'm at, but certain areas around the state are closing. Back roads mostly in the typical flood areas, and that's kind of cool. I like it. And you probably think I'm crazy for saying that, but we need the water really bad out here. I'm on a well, and I certainly don't want my well to dry up. I know that's important for the snow. I mean, the snow water runoff coming down from the mountains and whatnot, the creeks and whatnot. recharge the aquifers below. But the rainwater here at the surface level definitely keeps everything green, helps out the trees and whatnot I have here, and I like it. So I'll take the rain. Either way, have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later. Did they upgrade that? Let's see here. It was a 4.2, wasn't it? Looks like the US or the EMSC is reporting it as a 4.3 there in Southern California. But either way, heads up West Coast. Keep an eye out today. Stay safe out there. We'll catch you guys a little bit later tonight. Big night, right? New Year's Eve. No partying for me, but we will be back later this evening with an update. See if I can't pull Missy Mimi's on here as well. We got to bring her on here. She's been absent. We'll see if she's available. She's been pretty busy, though. All right, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on tonight. Unless something major happens. Knock on wood? Nah. Well, I better. Have a good one, folks. Peace out.